Welcome to the Volpe Report podcast, the state's premier public affairs show dedicated to the topics that matter most to Pennsylvanians. I'm your host, Chuck Volpe. Join us now as we speak to this week's guest.
The following half-hour show is a paid political program and is not endorsed by this station, management, or staff.
The following program is brought to you by Excalibur Insurance Management Services.
We welcome back to this week's show Pennsylvania Auditor General Tim DeFoor. You may recall, but I'll remind you, Tim hails from Dauphin County, central Pennsylvania, although his roots extended to Ohio and West Virginia through his parents, who were both blue-collar union workers. Tim's educational background is diverse and extensive. He holds a degree in paralegal studies from Harrisburg Area Community College. Community colleges are something he has spent a lot of time as Auditor General catering to and going to speak in front of, because he felt that was an important influence in his life. Tim then went on to get his bachelor's degree in psychology from the Pennsylvania State University, then going on to earn additional degrees in sociology and history from the University of Pittsburgh. Not done, Tim went on to earn his master's degree in project management from Harrisburg University of Science and Technology. Tim started his career in public service as a special investigator with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania Office of Inspector General, where he investigated government and contractor fraud, waste, and abuse within state government. Tim then went on to become a special agent with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, this time Office of Attorney General, investigating Medicaid fraud and illegal prescription drug diversion. Later, he became a fraud investigator and internal auditor for the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, also known as UPMC, and various federal contractors as well. Tim was overwhelmingly reelected in 2024 after completing his first term, in which in 2020 he had made history as the first African American to win election to statewide office in Pennsylvania. Tim also became the first Republican to win the office of Auditor General since Barbara Hayford in 1989. On this week's show, we will discuss his views on the importance of civility in government, as we are currently mired in a federal government shutdown, and at the state level, we are currently mired in a 120-day impasse with no budget in Pennsylvania. The deadline had been June the 30th, and of course, it's now November. This creates hardship in the lives of many working families, as well as those receiving benefits, like mothers with children, people at the poverty level, the food stamps program, as well as senior citizens. It also affects, from the state level, all the funding that boroughs and municipalities get from the state to carry out all the services they need to have and deliver to people. So today's topic, government shutdowns and budget impasses, would seem to be a good backdrop for the lack of civility, because it is the lack of civility in government that has led to these impasses and shutdowns. So today's show, I think you'll enjoy.
This is the Volpe Report, a weekly news and political interview show examining the latest local, state, and national issues with Chuck Volpe. Insightful, informative, controversial. The area's premier political talk show, the Volpe Report.
Auditor General, welcome to the Volpe Report.
Chuck, it is great to be back.
Well, let me tell you what, you've been at least 4 or 5 times on my show, but I think this is the first time in studio where I've had the benefit. Haven't we done, or were you the first time?
So
I remember.
I wasn't in office the first time I did it.
You were a candidate.
I was just elected.
Oh,
and this was the first show that I actually did after being elected.
Wow.
So I remember that, and thank you for having me back.
Well, you made all, of course, kind of a history for your accomplishments. The first African American. I don't remember the specifics of it, whether it was elected statewide or
statewide.
It was
Yes,
statewide.
Statewide.
I do remember. It's funny how things correlate, and you remember certain things. But one of my closest friends for a long time was, and still is, Rich Fitzgerald, county executive of Allegheny County.
Yes.
His chief of staff, Austin Davis,
Yeah.
and I became close well, I won't say close friends, but good friends, because like meeting you, everywhere Rich Fitzgerald went, Austin Davis was with him. And of course, he's now our Lieutenant Governor of Pennsylvania, first African American to do that. So
Rich,
we've been on a white woman. In the case of Mayor Scranton, Paige Gephardt Cognetti became the first woman of any race. But so women and African Americans and democracy.
it shows you how far we have come.
Yes.
In this Commonwealth. And Rich Fitzgerald is somebody who I've known since I've gotten into statewide politics, which hasn't been very long. Class act. And it's no wonder that Austin Davis was close to him.
Yeah, and a wonderful lieutenant governor.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, I know one of the topics we're going to talk about, in fact, we're going to start in now, maybe a great segue in, purely ironically, Austin Davis has been on my show. And it was at a time there was, I forget what level of acrimony between the Democrats and Republicans was currently going on. But there was an issue then. And that was one of the reasons I asked him to be on the show. And we talked about things. Some of the points I had made, he did not agree with. Some of the points he had made, I did not agree with. So we literally kind of had a very congenial discussion, somewhat of a debate on this show. The bottom line is, in a friendly, I consider you a friend, in a friendly, if it used to be a time when my dad, for example, was in the House of Representatives of Pennsylvania, he would argue tremendously across the aisle, but they'd all go out and play basketball and then go out to dinner and then come back in and fight the next day.
Right.
So I want to turn it over to you now. Talk about what you see from that standpoint.
Yeah, so what I see, unfortunately, is if whether you're at R or you're at D and you have your disagreements, unfortunately, a lot of times we're taking our disagreements outside of the Capitol, outside of the our halls of government. And things are going quite personal. And I that's something that I strongly disagree with. I like what you just said, where you can disagree with somebody on specific issues. Bottom line is that we all want government to work. We want government to work the way it's supposed to work. That's why I ran for Auditor General. For me, I learned about government, understood what it takes for government to operate efficiently and to be transparent. I understood all that before I got into politics. So I let that be my guide. But as far as taking the hostility and the not being civil to the level that it has been, that's something that we have to do better. We have to bring it back to, it's okay to disagree. I mean, there's not a person on the face of this earth that I agree with 100% of everything they say and do. Right. And that's okay. That's how it's supposed to be. I want to hear an opposing view, whether I agree with it or not. Doesn't mean we can't be friends. So at some point, we have to get back to that. And I feel that's something that is missing today. And we see it a lot in Washington, and we see it a lot in Harrisburg.
One of the things that the root cause of what you're talking about, General, is this. If you hate that person, if you let your feelings or ideological points of view get to a point where you demonize and hate the person, what happens that is where we're at in society now is you stop listening to them.
Right.
You name call. And once you shut your brain off and stop listening and they don't hear you and you don't hear them anymore, well, how would you ever, for example, when I'm having that conversation, that was a Zoom call on these TVs with the Lieutenant Governor, Austin Burke, I listened to him. I couldn't understand what points he was making but if you demonize him and just say you're wrong, and look, I'm not second. It was on some of the gun issues. It was, now I'm remembered, Second Amendment, and he had made some points of where we need some restraints and all this. And I, of course, am a Second Amendment person, but no, I agree with some of his points, and he actually agreed with some. So, but that comes from dialogue and listening to the people you're talking to.
Right, and when you start shouting, people just cut you off. I know, even with me personally, when someone gets in my face and starts shouting, automatically my mind says, cut them off, because no matter what you say, no matter what you do, you're not going to get through to them, or they're not going to hear your point of view. That, sometimes I wonder if that's the right attitude to take. But when we argue, when you mention the word hate is such a powerful, mean word, because when you hate, you're right, you automatically just shut people out. And when you shut people out, nothing's going to get accomplished. And especially when we're talking about government, when you have one side hating the other side, and people who are supposed to be working together hate each other, nothing's going to get done. No. So you have to sometimes, and this is one of the things that I do on a regular basis, I have to check myself. Sometimes, and my staff can tell you, sometimes I get angry.
You're human.
Right. I may not say the right thing. I may not do the right thing. But when I always take the time to calm down and kind of rehash what just happened. Right. And if I still have an attitude where we need to do this, then we do that. But sometimes I have to calm me down and be like, you know what? I think there's a better approach to this. So sometimes, and this is the hardest thing for humans to do, is to look in a mirror and say, you may not be right about this, or you need to check yourself. Right. And that's something that we all need to do, especially us elected officials. Right. We all need to take a hard, honest look in the mirror and say, are you doing this the right way, or is this the best approach that you have on this?
Agreed. I'm reminded of Richard Nixon, the only president to resign the office in disgrace, obviously because of Watergate. And he had a luncheon with his staff and the people that had been loyal to him for so many years. And he gave remarks, his final remarks, as it were. And he ended with this. He said, in a reflective moment, there were tears in his eyes. And he said, it was profound, because it maybe takes an event like that. He looked out and he said to them, he said, you may have enemies who try to destroy you, but they don't win unless you hate them.
Right.
And then you destroy yourself.
Right.
They may hate you, but they don't win unless you hate them back, and then you destroy it. And look, personification of that very thing.
And sometimes there are people who want you to hate them. And the reason for that, it gives them validation for whatever they're trying to do. And they can use that for whatever reason they want to. Right. And that's why, one of the things, and even running for re-election and initially running for this office, I never showed that hate or that anger towards my opponent, even though they may be saying things about me. But I think the general public understands and they see where someone is either just talking at the side of their neck, right, or if someone is trying to do the right thing. And one of the things that I think we elected officials need to do is show that we are not talking at the side of our neck, that we are just public servants doing the right things, although we may have disagreements. But we all want the same thing for our constituents. We may have different approaches.
There's no doubt.
And that's fine.
And as we wind this section down, we'll take a quick commercial break and then come back up for the other part of the show. If anybody out there is wondering, this is, I'm sure, I hope, interesting to them. But if they're wondering what's the relevance of, that's all well and good. What's the relevance of this conversation about civility and all that? Well, as we sit in this studio today, we have a federal government that has been shut down, approaching a record, 30 days. It's already been shut down a month, which has catastrophic outcomes for this country in terms of financial rating, bond rating, debt, right, all that you would know about. Yeah. But beyond that, we have a federal workers not getting paid. We have a WHIP and SNAP programs where people that most need that money aren't going to get it. So how do you get to that point? Well, lack of civility, hating the other side, taking your ball and going home. And right here, you're one of the top elected officials in Pennsylvania. You're our Auditor General. And even though it's not in your jurisdiction, you look across from, I'm sure, your beautiful office at that beautiful Golden Dome in Harrisburg. And right there, we have, again, the exact same thing. We are on now 4 months with no budget in Pennsylvania. Yeah. Communities and people that need state funding aren't getting it because both sides, the Republican Senate and the Democratic governor and Democratic House of Representatives, pretty much hate each other so much that they're like without even, not that they don't understand, but caring about the consequences for the people they're supposed to be helping. And so what does civility in government have to do with reality? And that's a nice conversation for you guys to have, but what does that have to do with anything? That's what it has to do.
Yeah, exactly. And so if you ever have been to my office in the finance building, if you look out the windows, I have two views. One view is of the Capitol.
Right.
The other view is of a neighborhood in the city of Harrisburg that is living either at or below the poverty level.
Well, you see everything you need to see.
So by looking out those windows, it puts things into perspective. Things that happen from one view in the Capitol affects what happens in the other view of an impoverished neighborhood.
Well said. Tim, I couldn't have thought of a more better way to end our segment. We're here today with the Auditor General of the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania and my friend, Tim DeFoor, who has done a wonderful job. You've already heard in my open, and he's been a guest 3 or 4, maybe 5 times, all the way back to when he was first Auditor General-elect, Tim DeFoor. But we'll remind you, because his credentials are extraordinary, the wealth of experience in government service and in public service he brought to this job, the professional qualifications. So when we come back, I thought it appropriate in the time we have left. He has a full schedule up here in Northeast and Central Pennsylvania, which is our media market. And so I want to talk to him a little bit about where he's going and some of the programs he's working on. Because when Auditor Generals, like governors or Attorney Generals, travel the state, it's usually to promote various programs to let people know what they're up to and how those programs could benefit them, which is precisely why the Auditor General is here today. So we'll let him talk a little bit about that when we take this quick break. We'll be right back.
Good morning. My name is Lieutenant Colonel Joe Albert, U.S. Army retired, and Commander of Coke Conley, American Legion Post 121 of Scranton, inviting all of you to attend our Veterans Day program in Scranton. The program will begin 11 a.m. on the Washington Avenue side of the Lackawanna County Courthouse. We have a fabulous program this year, so come on out November 11th, promptly beginning at 11 a.m. The 11th hour of the 11th day is the day the Great War ended. So I hope you will all come and enjoy a very happy Veterans Day. And of course, our thanks to Fox and Chuck Volpe for giving us this time.
Tim, welcome back. As our audience heard earlier, when Auditor Generals come to town, like governors, for example, in fact, our Governor, Josh Shapiro, I think, was here about 2 or 3 weeks ago, to much fanfare. But usually it is not just to meet people and get out into this big state, which I commend you for, but it's also to announce something of some significance, programs or things they're working on. With that having been said, that is, in fact, why you're here. So tell us a little bit about, when you leave this studio today, you're going to be going out back to the hustings of Pennsylvania, what your itinerary is and what you're doing and where you're going and why.
Well, first of all, I'm happy to say that I'm no stranger to NEPA. I'm always here for a reason. I love this part of the state, and I'm from the Harrisburg area. But what we're here to talk about something that's very passionate. I feel very passionate about financial literacy. And one of the first things I did once getting into office is we started our Be Money Smart financial literacy initiative, and our Deputy Director for Communications, Gabrielle Ernst, who is from West Piston, runs that. So we, as part of that, we put together an activity book, and we're having a contest for students from kindergarten to 12th grade to draw the cover of that activity book. And the winner of the contest is going to be named at next year's farm show. So we're here talking about the activity book, but we're also here talking about financial literacy. And I've said this before, and I don't mind saying it again. In my opinion, financial literacy needs to be taught in every school in Pennsylvania from kindergarten through 12th grade.
Great.
Now, fortunately, next year, school year 26-27, graduating seniors are going to have to take a half a credit of financial literacy in order to graduate.
Wow.
That's a great start.
Well, that's something you've done.
Right,
I mean, that's,
right. And that's something that and Senator Gephardt in Lebanon County, that was his piece of legislation that the governor signed into law. But as far as financial literacy as a whole, it's something that's needed in our schools. It's a life skill. And I remember me being in school, I had to take home ec, I had to take shop. Because home ec, you had to learn how to sew, you had to learn how to cook. Shop, you had to learn how to use tools. They consider that a life skill.
right.
Financial literacy is a life skill.
Maybe first among life skills, because at some point you grow up, and most people get married and have a family, and they have a budget. They have to live. They have mortgage payment, car payment, heat bill, light bill, electric bill. And if you don't know how to manage money and how that works, you get in a whole lot of trouble.
Exactly. And the one thing that that could dictate all of that is how's your credit? Understanding credit. And and we felt that it was important for us to be advocates for that, because we see the tail end of entities and people who don't understand basic financial literacy. We see it when we do our audits on a constant basis. Yeah. So we've been advocating for that. We've gone to 20 different schools across the Commonwealth. We've gone to schools here, talking to educators and school districts who, in some cases, have been teaching financial literacy for over a decade. Even though we have the law coming into place next year, some schools over a decade ago saw the need to teach financial literacy. And I first became passionate about it and started to do something about it when I was first elected Dauphin County Controller. I'm going to go back about a decade. And I was asked to speak to students about government finance and about what I did as controller. Left a little time at the end for questions and answers. At the end, I did not get one question about government finance. Didn't get one question about me. All the questions were about their own personal finance.
Wow.
And that's when I kind of started this crusade with regards to bringing about the awareness of financial literacy. It's something that is definitely needed.
Right. Well, I can relate. I'll tell you a story, because it's in a different, same church, different pew. One of the things when I was in law school that I remember vividly from talking among fellow law students and all that, I was lucky enough to be elected president of the Student Bar Association at Duquesne in Pittsburgh. We had 7 divisions, because Duquesne has a night law school as well, which is 4 years. So you have 4, and then the 3-day divisions. I was in the day. But you're talking to students, you're president of the Student Bar, about issues and things like that. And one of the laments I heard, ironically, and it's relatable to what you're talking about. They teach all this wonderful stuff about law school and how to be a lawyer, and they teach you how to pass the bar exam, which you have to do to become a lawyer. You know what they don't teach you how to do? How to actually run a law office, how to manage it, how to pay for it, how to finance it, right, how to manage payroll. These are essential functions for a lawyer. Yeah. I know at a different level, but the same principles you're talking about, that's something they lamented. Why don't they teach us in law school and have courses about what you have to do if you're a solo practitioner?
Right,
go ahead.
Exactly. So I remember going to a school in Allegheny County, high school, speaking to students who were taking a financial literacy class. There was one student that I spoke to who wanted to be an electrician. Trade schools don't teach them how to be an electrician. As far as the electrical unions out there, they were going to help him be an electrician as well. But this student wanted to not only be an electrician, he eventually wanted to start his own business and hire more people as his business would grow. So this kid clearly had a vision. So the trade school and the unions would help him become an electrician, but it was the financial literacy class that he was taking at his school that would help him run his business.
Amazing.
And we've heard so many stories from students with regards to how one financial literacy class changed the course of their life. It's another story about this young lady who didn't know anything about financial literacy. Her family wasn't doing well financially. She took a financial literacy class, and after taking this class, she went to her parents and kept talking about the class over and over again, how great the class was and how much it was helping her. And she started talking about their finance. After a while, her parents said, you know what? Why don't you just handle our the household's personal finances, which she did. As a result, not only did this family have enough money to live on, they had enough money to do things like buy gifts, buy treats and desserts, things that they could never do before, and things that we sometimes take for granted. But this family, this is the first time they were able to do this because this young lady took that financial literacy class that changed this family's life. And that's not the only story. So there's countless stories that we've heard on how taking that financial literacy class has changed not only students' lives, but also changed their families' lives.
Wow, that's great. So before we believe it or not, I know I've told you, our guests, I sometimes, you're so used to living in a world of sound bites and the 6 o'clock news. When you get a full 30-minute show, you think, wow, that's a long time. It blows. It just blows through.
It really does. Especially being here, because I just enjoyed being here during the conversation.
I love having you. And before we sign off now officially, what little time we have left, so what is your itinerary today? Where do you go for, first you're going to libraries?
Going to the library. I'm going to meet with Mayor Brown in Wilkes-Barre.
Okay, good.
I'm going to go to the Oosterhout Library,
wow,
where we're going to have a discussion about financial literacy, and then we're going to go to one of the local YMCA's to talk about the contest that we're having.
Wonderful.
So we have a definitely a full day.
Yeah, and I'm glad you were able to stop by our studios
My
here in
pleasure.
Fox. General, always a pleasure to see you,
It's
Tim.
good seeing you as well.
My pleasure. Again, we're here today with Pennsylvania's Auditor General, Tim DeFoor, who was in his second term, won last year in 2024 in an overwhelming re-election vote total, which was well-deserved for the good job he had done. And as he pointed out, I remember him walking in that door over 5 years ago now as the Attorney General-elect. He broke barriers, and he has done the best thing he could do for everybody. He did one of the best jobs that I'm aware of in my lifetime as Auditor General. So whatever the future holds for him, it's a bright one, and we need him in public service in this state for sure. So with that having been said, we'll be back next week as we always are, and we'll see you then with a new guest. Thanks for joining us for this edition of the Volpe Report podcast. Be sure to visit our YouTube and Facebook pages for upcoming episodes. You can catch up on the Volpe Report podcast on your favorite podcast provider.